Welcome to the Superpower Success Podcast. At Keystone, we believe exceptional organizations don't just happen. They are built by focused leaders that recognize their authentic leadership superpowers. Join us for a serious dose of inspiration. Welcome to the Superpower Success Podcast. I am so grateful and glad that you are here. I'm going to go out on a limb, and Jean, I don't want you to be offended by this. I hope you're not, but I think we have me in male form on the podcast as a guest today because Jean Hammett is an executive coach in leadership development. He's a keynote speaker. He's a best-selling author. He's a podcast host. He's a dad. There's a lot of other things that we'll get into, but when I read all of that, I'm like, well, that's kind of what people say about me. Like when I joined your podcast, it's all those things. So I can relate to how you juggle all of those things as a leader, both in your household and your community and in your business. So I'm excited to have you here today to have this conversation.
I'm excited too. The only thing that's different is you're a mom, which has a lot of pressure, more than a dad.
Thank you for recognizing that. You just got claps from all the females listening.
You also have 4 children. I only have one. Yeah. And they're at the age of which they are probably not the easiest to deal with.
No, I love them.
They love you.
Some days they're the devil incarnate. So yes. So it's all of those things. But we're doing the best we can. We all are, right? I think that's kind of what you and I have in common is, especially with the leaders that we work with, is we have our own journeys, but we also help leaders on their journeys. And so I'm excited to hear your story. I'm excited for you to share your perspective because you work with so many leaders at an executive level. And you're hearing the pain, right? And what they're going through. But I want you to start first with tell us about you. Like, what has that journey been like to kind of get to the level of success and achievement that you're at today?
I'm going to say it was pretty easy before I hit 40. I said 10 years of kind of corporate America. Didn't have a business idea. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't have the idea yet. So I did consulting and did strategy work and I did IT work with big 6 kind of consulting companies. I worked with a .com company doing e-commerce. It was a fascinating work. And at 9/11, I kind of got pushed out. Maybe a lot of us had to change things after that, but I was working for they raised money and they were cutting back on the team. I think we went from 150 down to about 12 employees and I didn't make the cut. So I got a little bit of a $35,000 check is what I remember. I used half of it to engage to my wife, who I'm still married to. It's been 22 years. And then I used the other half to build a business. And so that was in 2001 to 2010. I ran that business to about 7 million. And abruptly, it fell apart one day. I trusted the wrong person, lost everything, and really lost my sense of confidence beyond the money. And I had to rebuild myself. And that's when I took the journey to become a coach. And so when I look back at that part of my life, I can describe it as the worst thing that ever happened, but also the best, because it changed me into a new direction and I had to reinvent myself.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. I'm nodding because I'm identifying in a totally different way with that moment of best thing and worst thing that ever happened and how it changed you. Or I wouldn't even say it changed you. It pushed you closer to who you were supposed to be. And I think so many successful people, I mean, I interview people and you do too on your podcast, that none of them, it's been easy the whole way, right? There's been something that's rocked them. For some, it's a medical diagnosis, right? Or it's a business crisis, like what you're talking about, a major life change, a divorce or a death of somebody in their family. But they, instead of looking at that as why did this happen to me, which typically happens in the moment. I'm sure you had many days where you're like, why is this happening? It's what is this preparing me for? Because there must be something else I'm supposed to know or achieve, right? A muscle I need to build during this really hard time. And do you remember kind of back to that moment where your mindset was at as a leader?
Running the business before everything fell apart?
Yeah.
I remember I was looking for something else, but I will say that I was and I wrote a book about this, my first book called The Trap of Success. I saw things changing in my industry, but I was very comfortable. I was probably making $300,000-$400,000 a year on 7 million in revenue. I had a good lifestyle business before that was a common term. And I was too afraid to change things because that was so comfortable.
Mhm.
And that's very dangerous. I got complacent. I failed to grow. I failed to take those chances. And so now I'm in this new invention of myself. I take a lot of chances. I take, I'm never going to be stale. I'm never going to be complacent with this. I'm not reckless because I don't want to lose everything again, but I am truly building something that's meaningful to me and purpose driven. So my mindset was a little off.
Yeah.
I'll even give you some real deep um, things. My wife wrote a book called Faceplant years ago, and her book came out before mine, and it was her experience of us losing everything, a faceplant. And she was a youth speaker, so she was speaking in high schools and colleges, and so it was really targeted toward young people.
Mhm.
And I read in there, I think it was chapter 7, she was going to divorce me. I was like, you got a typo in here because I don't understand this. She's like, oh no, I thought about it a lot.
Mhm.
You weren't the person that you got a little bit more self-involved and egotistical. And I'll give you a really terrible thing I said just to be fully transparent. I said it jokingly, but there's some half truths in all of these humor.
Mhm.
But I said my job is like a professional quarterback, and your job is to anticipate my needs. I didn't even realize I was an asshole. And I had to discover it through the work after the fact of losing everything and then trying to rebuild that marriage with her. And it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't, it took a lot of work for both of us, but really on me. Like I just, we got counseling and all the things to help us grow together. And I'm glad we did because we have just such a magical relationship now at 22 years.
I'm tearing up a little bit, and I don't normally get emotional on these, but Jean, the world needs more men who are willing to admit what you just admitted on a podcast. I really mean that. Because I respect you 10 times more than I did 5 minutes ago because of that. And I think there's this stigma that men, and I think a lot of women have it too. You get to a certain level of success and you can't share those things, those face plants, and you can't share how you had to change because you screwed up. And I haven't even announced it yet, but my next book is coming out in the next few months called Surviving Greatness. And it's a parable. So it's not a business book, but it is. And it's exactly what you discussed. It's this idea that we get to a certain point in our success. I use success in quotes, right? Whatever you would define as success, a title, a salary, achievements that the outside world recognizes. And we're standing at the top going, is this all there is? Is this what it's supposed to be? And the next chapter of our success is actually going inward and fixing what needs to be fixed inside, which is what I hear, right? I'm projecting that on you, but what I heard that catalyst forced you to do.
Absolutely. And that's one reason why I'm not afraid to share it.
Yeah.
It's because and we there's some cliches that kind of get tossed around through the world because they really do mean something, but life happens for you, not to you.
Right.
So there was a long period of time when I lost everything. It was just under $3 million. There was a settlement.
Mhm.
It's embarrassing how little the settlement was. I got one penny on the dollar.
Mhm.
So I got $30,000 out of the 3 million that vanished. And the business imploded, so all my savings was wiped out and I had to rebuild myself. But I could easily be the victim of that.
Mhm.
I could let him be the person who did this to me, but there's no agency, there's no real growth in that, blaming someone else. And so I learned the hard way this lesson that life happens for me. And so that's the reason I can look at it and say it was the worst day and the best day of my life. But the same thing with my wife, right? Rebuilding our marriage, me realizing that I was a jerk and that I was, focused on things that she didn't wasn't willing to have a tough conversation with me, which is the book we wrote together.
Mhm.
And I'm sure we'll get to that today, but that it really was, I looking back at it, there's so many moments in our life that we're growing from if we're willing to see it and do the work afterwards, which most people I think aren't.
Right. And they aren't able to reflect, right? And sit down and really think about growth. Because I think growth actually happens in reflection. It doesn't happen
Mm.
in the moment when you learn the thing or you
Yeah.
become aware of the thing. It comes in you actually sitting with it and thinking about it. And that's the uncomfortable work. It's not hard work. It's uncomfortable work, which is even worse than hard work for a lot of people, right? It's the stuff
Yeah.
you don't want to do. You don't want to take the time to do it. So I think you're starting to share it, but I want to go to your kind of leadership journey, right? And where you've been from corporate to your own business and what you've rebuilt. Is there a moment, good or bad, as a leader where you learned and you were kind of formed on like, that is the kind of leader I want to be? And leader is general, right? Community, family, in the business.
Right. I'm going to use the old business because it was really my earliest part of leadership. If I go look at my professional career before that, working in corporate America and really trying to learn the skills and move forward and grow, I was a good producer. I was a good key player. I even was an okay manager of things,
Mhm.
but I wasn't a leader. And I didn't really understand that there's a difference between management and leadership, because when you're that young,
Right.
under 30, you're just doing your work. And I started a business in 2001. 2002, I was still trying to figure out my way. And my wife was like, "Do you know what you're doing?" Because I think my take home was 30,000. And in corporate America, it was 150.
You're right.
And we were dating. And so she was like, probably timid about, can you make this work? And I'm like, yeah, I can. And I grew it every year, like doubled it.
Mhm.
And so it was a slow going, but I ended up getting a coach. Her name was Linda. Linda changed my world. And that one moment that you said this, I came in to a conversation with my coach. And it's the reason I'm a coach today, is because I can remember back the impact this had on me. I was, running around talking about the problems, the fires that were going on. And I probably said something similar to, I feel more like a firefighter than a CEO. And a
Mhm.
lot of people can relate to that.
Mhm.
It's very reactive. And it's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to grow from and really create predictable success is putting out fires. You want to have this. And the coach asked me a few questions, and we got to the point where she said, "Why do you do it for your employees?" And I didn't know what servant leadership was, but I'm like, I'm trying to remove the hard things so that they can do their job. And I'm doing all these hard things. And she's like, "Yeah, but if you do it for them, they never learn." And so that was the moment where I learned about what empowerment meant. A
Mhm.
key aspect of leadership is not just doing it for them,
Right.
it's getting them to believe that they can learn how to do something, that they can grow. And that was a moment that really I can reflect back on more than 20 years ago, that actually when I lost everything, I went back to the same coach, Linda, and said, "Will anybody hire me?" Because I've just ran a business into the ground. And we had a really interesting discussion about that, similar to what you said. Like,
Mhm.
I hadn't been tested, and that was my test. She did say very clearly, once you get past this, you'll be able
To
and
do-
more capable of coaching and helping others, but you've got to do the work to get past it. So
Yeah.
that's the reason I went to coach training school, which most coaches probably don't.
Right. Well, I love that. And I mean, so many of us, and I even see it, and I don't know, I call it like there's a little bit of the COVID effect too, of just that tactical thinking, get shit done, crisis mode, right? What's right in front of you. And leaders are just not, they're not coming up for air and saying, how am I the hero in this story, or am I making my team the hero? Because the only way they grow is if they're the hero of their own story. I can't come in and swoop in and solve all the problems for them. And I think so many of us, there's worth, our internal worth in just doing stuff. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and how you coach leaders to get beyond the worth being the doing and the
Yeah.
worth being the being.
Uh, It's a really good question because it's such a critical part. I've got a model that I've used for years. I can share it with you guys if you want to, but it's 5 levels of leadership. And I've developed this myself. It's nothing, proprietary, but it's just the organization of it. The 5 levels, anti-leader is the bottom level, is kind of the micromanager. No one self-identifies that, but we have to put it there because there's some people that are, lead from authority and fear. Next level is transactional leadership. And that's what you're talking about. Is the people who focus on what they're doing is how they add value. I had a client once that was a $10 million company, and he goes, "I don't really have time to do the things I need to do as a leader." I said, "Well, what do you spend your time on?" And as a $10 million company, he goes, "I'm responsible for keeping the AR spreadsheet live, the cash flow spreadsheet, and the 941 forms. And so that's probably 60 or 70% of my job. And the rest of it's kind of leading the people." Now, I looked at the face you just
The
had.
fact he built it to 10 million based on that, I'm like flabbergasted.
I get it. Part of it's his business model. They do like
Yeah.
light industrial staffing. This is the crazy part. And this is what every leader should take away from this. He wasn't willing to let go of it because that's how his identity had created. He had been doing this from the beginning and he had the special skills.
Yep.
I connected him with one of my VA team members' friends. And so for $7 an hour, he showed her the spreadsheets that he was using. And by 3 months into it, he's like, she did it better than me.
Right. And
I
that's
think about
vulnerable.
that.
Somebody can do it better. You have to be okay saying that out loud.
And maybe it takes them 3 months to get there. I had another client that took 6 months to bring someone up from kind of project management to being like the person who reviewed every case that ran through his firm because he was the one that had 25 years of experience and
Right.
he wasn't willing to let go of it because he's like, they don't have the experience. And I'm like, if you got hit by a bus, who
Mhm.
would do it for you? And he goes, it'd be Gary or Vicky. Guess who does it today? Gary and Vicky.
Right.
That was 3 years ago. It took 6 months, and he was like, I thought it'd be one conversation. It wasn't one conversation. It was a series of conversations. It was a series of handing things off, and there are phases along that. And we have to realize to get out of that transactional mode, it's just a mindset shift of where you should be playing. And I was stuck there. I'm sure you've been stuck there, Jamie.
Yeah.
Our listeners have been stuck there. The next level in that leadership thing is strategic leadership, which we won't go too much into that. It's about how things are done and kind of like optimizing things. We do want to get people to think that way. So we use the model to get managers to think more strategically.
Yep.
It helps. And then there's the top two levels are exponential leadership, which is when you truly are charismatic and you are developing the people around you, and it just works.
It's 1 + 1 = 3.
Exactly. And you're building the people, which is different. A lot of people are managing the work
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
leading the people. They think they're the same. It's different.
Yep.
And managing work is like deadlines and problems and KPIs. Leading the people is you're expected to make a decision like this. What's getting in the way?
Mhm.
Giving them the chance to talk about it, give them the confidence, and for you to lead that person to a higher level of thinking, a higher level of confidence. The top level, which I've only seen a few in my world, but it is there, is the compound leader. Their ability to create more exponential leaders becomes their focus. One guy I remember was on the podcast, 600 employees, been doing this for 30 years. He's like, I'm now the chairman of the board. I have no day-to-day responsibilities at all. I go to the board meetings and every once in a while, once a week or twice a week, I'll meet with an executive to just coach them through whatever needs
Wow.
to be done. That's all he does. That's where a lot of people, they don't even want to sell their companies. They're able to create an experience for themselves and a team around them. That's what I'm trying to create for my business.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's really hard. But I'm also doing that as a coach for others, giving them the time to grow and focus on the right things.
Yeah. And it's, a lot of what you describe in this model too is that shift from a fixed mindset around leadership to a growth mindset. It's not, Sally has growth potential, right? Or she can potentially think differently. We aren't working with a finite set of resources and time and right. And I think it's hard for leaders to transition into that true growth mindset.
Absolutely. But
So
it's
how
necessary.
It's absolutely in today's world with the pace of change, if you don't believe your company or yourself or the leaders that report to you can grow and evolve and change beyond who they are today, you're doomed because it's the pace of change is only going to speed up. So, how would you, if you had to describe yourself as a leader today, what are your superpowers that allow you to be a good leader and then ultimately, right, a good coach too?
I'm just coming off I don't do this weekly, probably monthly with my team, 30-minute individual conversations, and they're offshore. This group, I've got another one later today with
Yep.
my onshore team and individual conversations. And I was like, are you happy? I
Mhm.
don't know. Why do I start with this word happy? Because I really care about the person. I really, if I look at my leadership, I know that the person's more important than the numbers. And if the person's happy, I'm much likely to get the right focus, the right results, the right resilience, whatever's necessary for them to grow. Each one of them, I ask them another question. How do you want to grow? I know my job is not just to get the work done, but get them to grow. It's a way for them to make more money because if their skills are not compounding and growing from year to year, it's hard for me to to give them more money.
Right.
But I want to say, looking for my leadership, I really care about the person. I really care about the ability to grow them, their confidence level. Each one of them had an area where they'd like to grow into. I know from my own research that if you have that inside your culture, where people feel like they're growing, they're much more a sense of ownership around the pride of their work. But they feel like they're not growing, they don't care almost.
Right.
And so I would also say, I didn't like the word, but I get it. They're offshore, so English not their first language. They're like, you're very approachable.
Hmm.
That sounds like, okay, I can talk to you, which is good. But I also know that culturally they don't engage. They avoid conflict.
Mhm.
They know I've written a book on tough conversations, and I'll ask for feedback. I'm willing to stand in the fire of my own feedback. I had one of my lead coaches tell me one day, and I really felt like I was coming from the right place, Jamie, when I was like, I know you can do this project. Here's why I think you can do it. This is your background, this is your skills.
Mhm.
And she's like, yeah, but I just don't know. She wasn't sure. The next day, I didn't even sense anything. This is a blind spot. But she comes up and she had the courage to come to me and say, hey, can I talk to you about yesterday's conversation? I'm like, yeah, you ready to accept the project? She's like, I need to talk to you about how you talk to me.
Mhm.
And I said, well, what would I do? She goes, I felt like you were talking at me, not with me.
Wow.
And I was willing to stand in that because I know that's important. A lot of younger employees, I don't know how many, what type of people listen to your podcast, but a lot of people will ask, does a leader really want feedback? It
Mm.
doesn't seem like they want to sometimes. And maybe a leader that isn't is evolved and whatnot. I've really been doing a lot of work on this, but I'm willing to stand and get the feedback because I'd rather discuss it than let it fester. And writing that book that how to have tough conversations that's what's happening a lot. People are avoiding these things.
Yeah.
And I'm really honored that she had the courage to talk to me about it because if she didn't, she might not be here. She's been here for 2 years now. She's a
Mhm.
great employee and she's my right hand person.
Right.
I'm glad she had the courage to do that. So that kind of defines a little bit of my leadership. I think there's a lot more to it than that. But I would
Always.
say too, I feel like I'm a coach more than I am a manager. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to treat them the way I do my best clients because I want them to grow. And that's what's happening with our company. And we're seeing growth because of it.
Yeah. I love that. And obviously, your own growth matters to you too, just outside of just writing books, which the latest book, How to Have Tough Conversations. I literally was just talking to my team. I think it was last week. We were brainstorming on some of the key pain points for executives. And this is courageous conversations was like number one. They can't do it. They don't
Yeah.
have the tools. It's not they can't do it. I shouldn't say that. They're capable of doing it. They don't have the right tools. So talk just a little bit about the book, why you wanted to write the book and how, because I think this is permeating in all aspects of our lives right now. When you see the divorce rates, all right, of people above 50 are quadrupling,
Yeah.
and all related back to this inability to say what you need to say, right? And have that more intimate conversation with someone and be able to have the tough conversations and build trust through it instead of break it down.
I realize that these tough conversations are hard for a lot of people. I do, one of the big things I hope that happens in this movement that we're trying to do
Mhm.
is that they will not let them fester and avoid them, that they will actually see it as a skill that they can get better at. We give them the tools, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a second, but just that shift from it's hard, and this is tough, this is difficult, whatever it is, whatever word you put with it, and you're avoiding it for whatever reason, that you would shift it to it's a gift or it's an opportunity to actually give feedback to someone. It's amazing. Like this shouldn't be that tough a conversation. I had one client who said there's a guy who does our PowerPoints and he does them internally and externally. And every time I have to look at them, there's always grammar mistakes. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. When you talk to him about it, what did he say? Well, I've never told him.
Yeah, so
I said, how long's this been going on? He goes, for 3 years. I just go behind him and clean up his work. You're the CEO of a $23 million company. Is that where you should be spending your time? Or should you be growing him? Just have a quick conversation with him. He'll get better if you do it. 100%. I know this. I know people.
right. You owe that to him, actually. I think it's a
Yeah,
responsibility.
absolutely. And it's an opportunity, not something that's hard. Just do these things. So
Yeah.
that's the big shift behind it. I did write the book with my wife, and I did a keynote last week, and I was introduced is how could you write a book with your wife? Like that would have put both of us in divorce court. And I was able to take the stage, and I don't script everything out. I mean, I have the first kind of opening story kind of memorized and practiced and prepared because I really know how important that is with an audience.
Yep.
But I was able to come back and say, reflecting on getting this book out, me and my wife did do it together, and we're actually better because of it. We actually did talk about tough conversations in a business context, but that spilled over into, hey, I've been meaning to tell you
Hmm.
the way you do the bed or the way you do this in the bathroom and the way you do this. We were able to have these honest conversations with her, and we were able to stand in that truth and grow from it. And I really do feel like our marriage is magical at this point because of it. I probably said that too many times today.
I love it.
Um, but the book, if I back up for a second, there was a few things that kind of contributed to this. One was CEOs of fast growth companies, which is I primarily work with Inc. 5,000 level companies. They're not huge names, but they might be doing 5 million to 50 million. Some are doing 200 million, but they're not big companies.
Hmm.
And I noticed this happening quite often where Jack, CEO of X company, would complain about Cindy or Jeff, and they're not prepared to have the conversation. So we would talk about it, then we'd let them rant and complain. And I would have to ask them a few key questions. One key question that kept coming up, and actually is probably my most asked question in all my coaching over the last decade, is what's the missing conversation that hasn't happened yet? Because you've had many conversations with Cindy or Jeff, but what is the thing that you really need to talk about? The best story I can give you, and I pull this from the book, all the names are changed and whatnot to protect the not so innocent. But I remember a guy goes on vacation, and one of my rules is when you go on vacation, meet with every employee individually and make sure that they know what they're doing, that they're clear about the priorities, that we removed all the roadblocks so that when you go away, you don't get pinged with where's this and what's that, and do you know what I should be doing? Or they should know this ahead of time. Because I really believe vacations should be vacations, and I've had to learn that the hard way from my wife. We need those to recharge. I remember him coming back, and one employee did not get the work done. And we talked about it. He ranted and raved, and I was like, what's the missing conversation you haven't had yet with this employee? She's a developer. And he's like, how are we going to catch up on these hours? And being the coach, I'm have to ask a follow-up question because that wasn't the right answer.
Hmm.
I said, no, what's the real issue? And he thought about it for a few minutes, and he's like, are you committed to being here?
Mm.
A different conversation, but how are we going to catch up the work versus how are you committed to being here is profound.
Yes.
He had the right conversation with her. This was 2 years ago. Every time I talk to this CEO now, he's like, she's doing great. There's no issue. She's on the top of it. I'm sure there's other issues that they've addressed,
Mhm.
but they've never had to talk about commitment and catching up on work since that. Now, is it always one and done? No, it's not. We talk about that in the book too, but that's just give you some context around these things. The tools, I know I'm kind of going on long here, so I'm going to pause. Do you want me to share the tools from the book that I feel like are really helpful?
I've got a hard stop at one, so I want to just
Okay.
make sure we can land it. But share one or
Yeah,
like, and we'll point them to the book
re-
tools too.
really quick.
Okay.
One tool I had to fight for this because my wife didn't see it. I'm quoted the lead coach here, and not every tough conversation is the same. And so we come up with the phases. There's 4 phases inside here. I don't know if it's chapter 5 or something in the book,
Yeah.
but the first phase is really about seeking to understand, right? It's called understand and clarify. Don't
Mhm.
come in guns a blazing. You did this wrong. If we go back to the example of the person who had the grammar problem, you wouldn't berate them. You just like, hey, do you use a spell check? What's your process for making sure you know something's finished?
Right.
That little squiggly line underneath, what do you think that means?
Yeah.
um, anything, have you used ChatGPT to help you with the language of this to make sure that you get it as accurately as possible?
Right.
These are all questions. These are all seeking to understand because you might need to do that a lot more often than you know. And it's an easier conversation to have,
Yep.
but you can also clarify in that phase 1. So phase 2 is name the pattern, I won't go into that because it's in the book. Be direct. Phase four is exit. A lot of people who read the book go, I realize I didn't know there were phases. I just get, avoid things until they get down to phase four and I just exit people.
Right.
That's not leadership.
Yeah.
So
It's
that
not doing
tool
that uncomfortable work.
is so important, I think, just to know where you are. It gives you a chance to know what's in the future. If you don't do it right, you have to keep going back and going through these phases. If the issue changes, you're going to change, go back to phase one. So that's one of the biggest tools. The second tool that I'll highlight, and it'll be kind of the last one I'll say today, is make a plan. Um, it's incredible how many people try to wing it. And we put in there probably a dozen questions. My favorite question of all inside the make a plan is, how did you contribute to this? As a leader, blaming others, not very powerful. But how did you contribute to it? Most of the time, it's, I should have brought this up earlier, or I wasn't as clear about what I expected from you. That's on me. Let's sit down and talk about that today. And you taking a level of ownership into how you've made this an issue is really an important part of leadership and connection and trust as you guys are rebuilding and realigning together, because that's really what the tough conversation is meant to do, is to rebuild alignment with each other, get on the same page, if you will, and trust each other to a deeper level. And that's what this book does. It's meant to be short, and it's meant to be really practical and actionable, very different than most big books. I love Radical Candor. It's a great book, but it doesn't give you the practical aspects that we have in this book.
Well, in the simplicity of we say all the time, right? Ask different questions. And the two, I mean, what's the missing conversation and how did you contribute to this? Or even flipping it. I'm thinking of a couple of clients right now that question on how did I contribute to what's going on right now as the leader is a
Mm-hmm.
really powerful question to ask your team. What am I
Yeah.
doing that's making this the way it is or not doing? And it's that self-awareness and giving people the opening. Because if you develop that and you ask the questions the right way, so they don't feel like it's an interrogation, they'll give you, most will, right? Will give you the response if you open the door.
Yeah, I agree. And so we wrote the book to be the most practical and actionable, usable book. We hope it sits on a desktop. People put little
Reference guide. Yeah.
things on there, like right to the phases or right to those key questions for make a plan. And I'm just really proud of the book. I mean, friends are not going to read your book. I wish they would, but
Yeah.
my wife has a friend who's a lawyer, and he read it and he came back and said, this is so good. I should have known this the whole time I've been a lawyer. Can you come speak at our lawyer breakfast?
Yeah.
It's really an important tool for organizations to rally around. I hope that people use it as book clubs, and I hope it really does start to really sell faster than it is. Not that I'm trying to make more money, because I think I make 7 cents a book.
Don't make money
Uh,
on. Yeah, I've proven
but
that.
I just feel like this is my life's legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm joking when I say this, but the best thing that me and my wife have ever created, maybe it's not my son, maybe it's this book.
I love that in a weird way. I totally get you. I totally get you. But I think the simplicity of for people to walk towards change and growth and right, doing the work, it can't be complicated.
Yeah.
The first few steps have to be simple so that we learn how to build the muscle so that we want to keep doing it. And the simplicity of what you're describing, I mean, this is kind of the action coming out of here is, looking at resources like How to Have Tough Conversations as a book to just say, how can I take one question out of there this week? One question and start
Yeah.
asking that differently, right? They don't have to take every single piece of the book right out of the gate. And I think we need to release that pressure valve for leaders to say, you don't have to do all of these things. So I'm assuming with the book, Amazon, all the places, we can put the link in.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put links into all of this so that you have access to Gene and his wife's book. Before we wrap, I want to do a couple of our fun kind of bonus round questions that you are not prepared for,
Sure.
which I love. So you'll roll with me on this. If you could have coffee with anyone in history, who would you have coffee with and why?
I don't know. For some reason, I want to say Elon Musk, because he's such an interesting enigma. He's brilliant. I don't agree with everything he does or says, for sure. I do like Teslas. I have two. Interesting mind.
Yes.
Not a great example of leaders.
No,
And one of the questions I would ask him,
not. Right.
3 o'clock Sunday morning, all hands meetings. What's the point behind that other than just
Right.
authority and fear.
Right.
But
But his
I guess I'd have to
creativity
go with
and
that.
innovation, I mean, there is something there, like how that,
Innovation. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I got it. Okay. To lead well, you need to be well, right? We need to manage our own energy as leaders. What's something you do consistently to manage your own energy?
I do a lot of things. Sleep is a priority.
Mhm.
My wife struggles with this, and it's gotten better over the last maybe 6 months or 8 months, and maybe that's the reason why things feel magical because she's sleeping. But eating right, I'm not perfect by any measure. I love food. I love, I'm from the South, and a lot of it's fried and barbecued and all that stuff. But if you eat poorly, you're going to feel poorly.
Mhm.
I'm also big on exercise. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 17 years, maybe more now. I got a black belt back in December, so I'm just really love that. I work out with weights and all that stuff. I just feel like a lot of leaders I see aren't taking care of their bodies. They get to be at 45-ish and there's a medical scare in their life. It's a knee that's blown out. It's a heart problem. One of my friends, I don't know if you know John Ruhlin, but he passed away recently. He's 45 years old.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I saw your.
Um, just incredible it's great to have a great successful business, but
Mhm.
it's more important to have an incredible health and relationships around you. It takes all of those things for, I think, for us to really thrive in our world. And I'm honored to be able to spend what I spend on my care. I think I've switched to what I call proactive care. And so instead of just once a year going to the doctor, I've been getting functional medicine and getting blood tests and getting ahead of things because I'm proactive in so many areas of my life. And now my health, my blood pressure literally is the lowest it's ever been the last 2 times it's been checked. Um, and I feel like that's such an important piece.
I think so. In order to lead well, and you need to be well. That's like, I think you're describing it. It's a beautiful place to kind of end the podcast is until we can lead ourselves, we can't lead others. And we certainly can't lead culture, right? And lead the business to where it needs to be. And so it starts with you, which is exactly what you do from a coaching standpoint, is that is an investment in the leader themselves. And
Yes.
not enough leaders are making that investment of time and money. It's both in themselves on so many levels. So I think this is a great reminder for all of us. And thank you for sharing so vulnerably on this podcast. Everyone needs to check out the book. We will have it in the links. But you also need to just do a check-in after listening to this podcast with a lot of what Jean shared is how are you showing up for yourself and how are you showing up for others? And are you doing the uncomfortable work, which requires you to have tough conversations? So thank you everyone for listening in. And Jean, thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. I appreciate you.
Jamie, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure and hit that subscribe button so you get the latest episodes as soon as we release them. And remember to keep maximizing your unique leadership superpowers. It truly is the key to building success, both in your career and in life.